Welcome back, everyone. So the episode picks up some time in the future. If I had to guess, I'd argue it's been at least a couple of days, long enough so that the chief, Sachiko, and Sayu have moved to the countryside and started living in this cabin. And when it comes to Sayu, she's been traumatized. And it's actually really hard to watch because we know what she's usually like. I mean, every time we've seen her, she's always been so lively. Whether she's cracking jokes with Light during breakfast,
I'll keep it a secret. For $50!
Gushing over everyone's second favorite pop star,
I swear he's perfect!
or just shutting down our resident goofball's romantic advances.
I was thinking if you were a little younger, I might have considered going out with you sometime.
But now she's just a shell of her former self. I mean, she's in a borderline catatonic state due to whatever happened to her while she was with Mello and the Mafia. And she apparently can't even walk or talk at the moment, which is made clear by the fact that she's currently in a wheelchair and the fact that when Sachiko tells her,
I think we should do this every day. The sun will do you good.
Sayu just doesn't respond. She just sits there with this despondent look in her eyes. And it's just heartbreaking because she just doesn't deserve any of this at all. But anyway, moving on from Sachiko and Sayu, we turn our attention to the chief as he tells himself,
what in the world am I supposed to do now?
And it's clear that for as much as this whole ordeal has taken a toll on Sayu, and also, I imagine, Sachiko, it's also had a huge impact on the chief, too. And I want to take special note of the unique position that he's in, because not only does he have to reconcile with his daughter's current condition and the fact that she was only ever put in this situation because of who he is, but on top of that, he's also struggling with the fact that he made the unilateral decision to hand over a weapon of mass destruction to an organized crime syndicate. Like, all of that's gotta be weighing heavy on his conscience. And I'd argue that it's especially hard for someone like him, given his overwhelming propensity for justice. Like, this is the guy who initially led the charge alongside L to take Kida down. The same guy who quit the police force because he was unwilling to submit to Kida like the rest of the leadership at the MPA. And the same guy who opposed the idea of testing the notebook because he valued the sanctity of life. And now, here he is, having compromised himself to the point where he's essentially served to create another Kida. And hell, arguably a worse one. Because while Kida will kill those that try to oppose him directly, I think it's fair to say that he does have some semblance of a moral code. The Mafia, though? Not so much. So, yeah. After spending the better part of a decade earnestly trying to rid the world of the Kida that already exist, he wound up helping create
another one.
And that's a lot. But anyway,
Episode 29, Father.
So the episode proper starts off with Ryuk just staring at a fruit bowl, specifically the apples, because obviously, and as he hops up off the couch and moseys on over to the bowl, we find that he's not alone.
Hi, Ryuk.
I swear, every time this dude opens his mouth, I chuckle a little bit. But yeah, Ryuk is caught off guard by the sudden appearance of Sidoh. But, like, did he really think that this man was never gonna come get his notebook? Like, I guess I can understand him being caught off guard that he's here right now, but I have to imagine that he knew this day would come eventually, right? Or, you know what? Maybe not. I mean, when I think about it, this is Ryuk that we're talking about. Dude's like Joker from The Dark Knight.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan?
Like, sure, he had the forethought to write the rules in the notebook, but I highly doubt much more thought went into what might happen after someone actually picked it up. And I'm also sure that he didn't think he'd be here for over 6 years. But yeah, from there we see Ryuk fly away from this guy, and I want to point out the fact that Ryuk is just on his own. Hell, he was actually on his own in that hotel room. Like, Light and Misa are both just somewhere else. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because of that whole thing about Shinigami having to stick with whoever has their death note. Like how Ryuk said back in episode 3.
I'm here because I have to stick around till the death note is finished, or I see you die, whichever comes first.
And while that line doesn't outright say that he's on a leash or anything, it's basically implied that he is, given he was so hung up on the fact that he couldn't eat apples in the house.
Apples are to me what cigarettes and alcohol are to humans. I even get withdrawal symptoms.
And then he proceeds to go through withdrawal that very night, which in retrospect is really weird, because look at where he is right now, flying hundreds of feet in the air, far, far away from the owner of his death note, which would be Misa. So, like, what was the point of all of that when you're free to go wherever you want, apparently? I mean, I guess you could make the argument that he didn't want to miss anything, because I could see that. But, like, would you really miss that much if you flew to the store, swiped an apple while no one was looking, and then ate it on the way back? But whatever. Like I said, Ryuk's trying to get the hell away from Sidoh, but Sidoh's like, I'm not fucking leaving! As he goes on to say,
I want my notebook.
And Ryuk, fucking Ryuk, man, is just rude as hell as he responds by saying,
Too bad. Things got a little complicated recently. I have no idea where it is.
Okay, so, you know what's crazy? The fact that Sidoh is only just now showing up. And what I mean by that is, the notebook has been in the same location basically every day for the last 5 years. And yet Sidoh only pops up like the day after it's been taken and can no longer be easily retrieved. Like, that's just impeccable timing on his part. Anyway, after a while, Ryuk ends up landing in a random alleyway as he once again tells Sidoh to leave him the hell alone, following it up by saying,
If you want it back, you're gonna have to look for it yourself.
Which, man, if I was Sidoh, I'd beat the shit out of this motherfucker. Like, the audacity of this bitch to just essentially tell him to fuck off after basically condemning him to death. Because, I mean, if Sidoh doesn't find his notebook, then he could very well die. Like, Sidoh, my guy, you've already got your hands in position. It's time to start throwing them.
That fuck him up.
But Sidoh ain't about that life, apparently, as he just stares at Ryuk in disbelief that he would be such a colossal dick about all of this. But anyway, from there we head back to the task force, where we see that Aizawa is informing the group about what he and Matsuda uncovered regarding the Whammy's house.
It's like a school for gifted children.
Not this dude was both Alfred and Charles Xavier. But anyway, Aizawa then goes on to explain that the purpose of the academy was to groom children so that they could become the next L.
Apparently, the one most likely to succeed L is this kid named Nier.
Also, we found some leads on Mello. He's smart too, but he always came second to Nier.
So from just this brief explanation, coupled with what In mentioned to him in their last conversation, Light quickly discerns that the In person that he's been in contact with must actually be Nier, and that the game that Nier has told him about must be in regard to the fact that Mello is desperate to finally beat Nier in a competition, especially given the fact that Nier was unofficially chosen to be L's successor. And yeah, while none of this is too complex or anything, I'm still going to give credit to Light for being able to come up with a solid hypothesis despite not really having too much information to go off of. I mean, maybe everyone in the room was thinking that, but given these guys' track record so far, I wouldn't bet money on it. Anyway, the scene ultimately ends with Aizawa showing the task force drawings of the two young boys, with Light ultimately telling himself that,
It looks like I'm still fighting L after all this time.
Now from there we switch scenes to Light concocting a plan for how to get his old notebook back, and it's a really smart one, even though, in my opinion, it shouldn't be possible. But more on that in a minute. Also, while this is technically Light's plan, I want to give a shout out to our girl Misa, because Light's basically using one of her tricks in order to accomplish this. And what I mean is, he's currently using his influence as L to obtain the records of people who have known ties to the Mafia. And by using Misa's Shinigami eyes, specifically the fact that she cannot see the lifespan of another Death Note owner, it makes it really easy to find out who has ownership of that Death Note.
Look, I found him! I can't see his lifespan.
Now, the reason I say that he got this idea from Misa is because this is exactly what she did to find him back in episode 13.
When you have the Shinigami eyes like I do, you can see most people's name and lifespan just by looking at them. However, you can't see the lifespan of any person who possesses a Death Note.
So yeah, big props to Misa for coming up with that idea initially all those years ago. And I mean, also credit to Light for taking note of it then and utilizing it again for his own machinations now. But with that being said, despite this being theoretically a really smart plan, in my opinion, this actually should not work. Because realistically, Cal Snyder should not be the owner of that Death Note. And I say that because Light should still be the owner. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Light is definitively the owner of that notebook. And I say that because we saw him take ownership of it. Like, the first half of episode 24 is all about him reclaiming ownership of that specific notebook. And at no point do we ever see him forfeit ownership of it. Not in episode 24, 25, 26, 27, or 28. There was no point wherein he gave up ownership of that notebook again. And yet, somehow, Cal Snyder is the owner of it. That just doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I guess one could try to justify it using the rule from episode 16, which states if you lose the Death Note or have it stolen, you will lose its ownership unless you retrieve it within 490 days. But Light didn't actually lose it. He had it and let the task force hold onto it because he had a spare in his possession after Rim died. So yeah, he never lost it or had it stolen from him. But if we're playing devil's advocate, then fine. Let's say he did lose ownership of that Death Note. If that's the case, then Cal Snyder is still not the owner of that Death Note. But you know who is? The Chief. Yeah, because if after 490 days Light lost ownership, then that means the next person who would have touched the notebook would have automatically become the owner. And since the Chief was the one who went and retrieved it in order to make the exchange for Sayu, that would mean that he had ownership of it. And I know, he handed it to that dude in the bunker, and according to Ryuk, giving a notebook to someone else means forfeiting ownership of it.
If you don't want it, just give it to someone else.
But the thing about that is, that's not how forfeiting ownership has ever been shown to work. I mean, from what we've seen throughout the show, one human handing over a notebook to another human does not equate to forfeiting ownership of that notebook. And to give a specific example, let's take a look at this scene from episode 13 when Misa gave her notebook to Light.
Here, I'll even let you hold on to my Death Note, but you'd just be holding it. So I'd still be the rightful owner of it. Isn't that right, Rem?
Yes, that's right.
And okay, maybe you're thinking that it's not the same thing since she made a point to say you'd just be holding on to it. But even still, I'd argue that just like with Misa in that scene, the Chief had no intention of letting the Mafia keep the notebook, as he was well aware that both of the task forces were actively working to not let the kidnapper get away. And just because he lost track of where it was after handing it to the guy, I still don't see that as being any different than what happened with Misa, since she had no idea where Light put her notebook after she left his house that night. So in both of those instances, the notebook was given to someone else, and then the respective owner had no idea where it ended up. Yet one retained ownership while the other lost it. That doesn't make sense. But even still, like I just said, passing notebooks between two people has never been shown to be enough on its own to initiate a forfeiture of ownership. Forfeiting ownership has always been depicted as a deliberate thing that needs to be relayed to a Shinigami.
I hereby forfeit ownership of this notebook.
Misa, forfeit ownership and leave everything to Light Yagami.
Until the next time you hear me say, get rid of it. When I say that, assume that I want to relinquish ownership of this Death Note.
How about giving up ownership of the notebook and returning it to me?
And there'll even be another example of this later in this episode. So, I mean, a Shinigami is always involved, specifically because giving up ownership means that you have to have your memories wiped.
But if you give it away, I'd have no choice but to erase your memories of the notebook.
Misa, when this is done, you'll forget everything about Shinigami and the Death Note.
Like, in both of those instances, the Shinigami are making it clear that they're going to initiate or do something that will result in the owner's memory being wiped. So, who's going to initiate the memory wipe if there's no Shinigami attached to the notebook? Because, I mean, that notebook, for all intents and purposes, has no Shinigami attached to it right now. Because the last Shinigami that was attached to that notebook was Rim, and she dead. She been dead. And to put this another way, let's use Light's ownership in episode 24 as an example again. After regaining ownership of that notebook, he has to hand it back to Ryuzaki and the task force with the understanding that he'll very likely never be able to get his hands on it again to use it, which is exactly what ends up happening. We never see him touch that notebook again. And yet, when we see Ryuzaki holding the notebook and keeping it on his desk throughout episode 25, it's never presented as Light having forfeited ownership and Ryuzaki having taken ownership. And yet, in this situation, with the chief acting as Light and the Mafia acting as Ryuzaki and the task force, in the sense that the chief hands the notebook over, knowing that there's a chance that he'll never be able to get his hands on it again, it's just 100% seen as him forfeiting ownership of it. What? So, yeah, to me, the idea of Cal Snyder being the owner of the notebook just doesn't make any sense. Realistically, it should be Light, because he never actually gave up ownership of it. He essentially just did what Misa did back in episode 13, and that's not losing the notebook or having it stolen, so that rule shouldn't even apply. But if not him, then it's definitely the chief, because even with the Death Note having exchanged hands, the fact that he 100% intends on immediately trying to get it back, and that there is no Shinigami present here, and that Light was in damn near the exact same situation a few episodes ago in regard to handing over the notebook to someone else, makes me think that there's no way this should count as a forfeiture of ownership. But whatever. Like I said, Misa quickly finds the guy and they end up writing his name in their Death Note. And in regard to what they write, they basically give him explicit instructions to have him send them a letter with the address to the Mafia hideout, which, what the hell? Okay, I mean, I kind of have an issue with this, because how is that something you can force him to do? Because, I mean, the whole thing is that it has to be something that that person would realistically do, right? So the idea of him sending a letter to a random person with the address of their secret Mafia hideout just seems like not something that any sane person would do? Like, what? You're telling me that you can't have someone write, I know that L is suspicious of the Japanese police, without it being a problem, but apparently someone will willingly send a random person a letter with private information that could very well lead to their own arrest and or death. Okay. Anyway, a few days pass and we see that the letter has come, and we're just going all in with the fan service these days, aren't we? And I mean, I'm not complaining or anything, because honestly, this is pretty tame, because the shit I've seen with the teenagers in Code Geass is, a bit much. But anyway, Misa welcomes Light home and tells him the good news.
Great news! The letter arrived!
And of course, I had to look that address up, but unfortunately, it's not a real place. But yeah, with everything going according to Keikaku, once again, Light ends up telling himself,
I outmaneuvered both Nier and Mello. Guess it's no surprise. As long as I have the notebook in Misa's eyes, I'm unstoppable.
And now I'm back to being annoyed by this dude again, because bitch, you are playing with literal hacks. Hacks that defy the laws of nature as we know it. Not only that, but this was an idea that you got from Misa, and yet you're relegating her to the same status as the notebook, just another tool at your disposal. Like, you're such an asshole, bro. At least give her some credit for initially coming up with the idea of using her eyes like that. But anyway, after giving Light the good news, Misa, whose love language is clearly words of affirmation, says,
I guess this means I was helpful to you again, doesn't it?
And Light goes on to give her what she needs as he responds by saying,
Yeah, I love you, Misa.
And yeah, it's sweet. I mean, it's not, because I know he doesn't mean it, but it's enough to make her happy, so whatever. Now, while they proceed to get ready to smash, because I'm pretty sure they're about to smash, we see Sidoh just walk up and take a peek at the address. And if you're confused by why neither of them notice him, well, it's because right now Sidoh doesn't own a notebook, so no one outside of other Shinigami can actually see or hear him. And this is made even more clear when he rolls up to the Mafia hideout and, well, no one notices him. But before we get to him making his presence known, I want to point out that we hear Mello saying,
"The next step is for me to figure out just how much I can control people with this thing."
And I think that's worth pointing out because it's very much in line with what Light did with the notebook not too long after he got it, testing it out to see how much he could control a person's actions before they died. So it's like an interesting little parallel with them. But anyway, like I said, Sidoh shows up, and in order to get Cal Snyder to see him, he snatches the notebook out of Mello's hands and throws it on Cal's head. And the reason he has to do it this way is because by Sidoh touching the notebook, it immediately becomes linked back to him. Kind of like how Rim's notebook became Ryuk's when she passed it to him, and vice versa. All it takes is touching a notebook for a Shinigami to become the owner of it, apparently. But as far as Sidoh snatching the notebook, it's actually kind of funny because Mello is completely caught off guard by the fact that the notebook seemingly just floated on up out of his hands. But what's even funnier is Rod's response to Mello telling him about it.
"It's a notebook that kills people. Hell, nothing surprises me anymore."
Fucking based Rod over here, cause, I mean, fair. But yeah, once Cal is finally able to see him, Sidoh tells him to pass the notebook around so that everyone else can see him too. And, well, we've been through this enough times to know exactly how they're going to react. And yeah, despite their earnest attempt at trying to kill our boy Sidoh, it doesn't work.
Nice try. You humans can't kill a Shinigami.
And I mean, that's nothing new. We saw the bus jacker do the same thing back in episode 4. And also, just a random voice actor fun fact, old Rod over here, yeah, he's actually the same voice actor as that bus jacker. And he also voices Ide, too.
Stay in your seats unless you want to die!
What's all this about the Americans not trusting Elle anymore? I don't like the sound of that.
Don't worry. As long as we do what Mello says, there'll be no mistakes.
And those are all very different roles. So shout out to Brian Dobson for his range as a voice actor. But yeah, from there, we head back to Team Kira as they discuss their next moves.
Ryuk, as of now, I'm going to forfeit ownership of this notebook.
And this is the example that I was referring to earlier. Like, again, he is speaking directly to a Shinigami in order to forfeit ownership. And in this instance, it's not even the owner of his Death Note, because Ryuk isn't actually linked to that notebook. The whole reason that Light can see Ryuk right now is because back in episode 24, Misa touched him with that scrap of her notebook, which Ryuk is attached to. But yeah, Light then goes on to tell Ryuk to follow whoever he ends up giving this notebook to, and Ryuk and Misa are both pretty caught off guard by him doing this, with Misa posing the important question of,
"Wait, won't you lose all your memories if you do that?"
To which Light then says that he'll just hold on to Misa so that won't happen, meaning that she is willingly handing over her notebook while still technically retaining ownership of it. You know, because she has every intention of getting it back from him at some point, despite him not saying that he'll ever give it back to her. And really, considering what he's about to do, he really might not ever be able to give it back to her. But more on that in a second. Anyway, he goes on to explain that he'll give her pages of the notebook as she needs them, while keeping the notebook on himself at all times, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because imagine he drops it. Like, I'm just picturing Misa sitting reading a magazine and then suddenly hearing Light fucking screaming in the other room because he had to pick the notebook back up after dropping it. Anyway, just as Light is about to explain his plan, we head back over to Team Mello. And the first thing I want to point out is this.
Chocolate is so good.
Hey!
So it looks like Sidoh has a vice of his own. And in seeing this, I wondered if that's just a common trait with all Shinigami. Because, interestingly enough, all of the Shinigami that we've spent time with have had their own unique obsession. With Ryuk, it's apples, with Sidoh, it's chocolate, and with Rim, it was cake. Specifically, Misa's. I'm sorry. No, but seriously, they really did have their own unique vice, and I thought that was interesting. But anyway, chocolate aside, it turns out that Sidoh's been out here running his beak.
Hey, what about that stuff you told us? Is it true? Are you saying those 2 rules are made up?
Oh yeah, those rules are definitely fake.
But honestly, I can't even be mad at him because he's not in on it. So why wouldn't he just tell them that it's bullshit, you know? But anyway, after hearing this, Mello dives straight into detective mode. And part of me wants to discuss the whole color theory thing because I made a point to discuss it previously in regard to both Light and Misa, both Ryuzaki and Naomi, with Matsura and with Namikawa. But I feel like Mello's color here is only yellow because he has blonde hair. Because as far as color theory is concerned, this man does not exude yellow energy. Like, in reality, he's actually the opposite of most yellow traits, because this man is not a fun, happy, or warm person. But anyway, Mello then goes on to question whether or not this was the same notebook that was used by Kira, and if it was, he wonders whether or not Kira was made aware of the fact that these rules were fake. He then goes on to say that if Kira was aware that they were fake, then he'd have been able to use them to his advantage, especially in regard to the 13-day rule, which, yeah, that's exactly what he ended up doing. Anyway, after mulling things over for a minute, Mello tells Sidoh to keep watch outside, claiming that it'll work out in their favor that no one can see him. And, you know, that's really smart to use his invisibility to their advantage. But there's something about the way he says it that's just very unhinged.
Go outside and keep watch. Got it?
Like total yellow vibes, am I right? I mean, this dude's so intense that even Sidoh's like, yo, what the fuck?
He's human, but he's scary.
But anyway, from there we transition to the chief as he gets a call from his son.
This is Keehl.
And I really kind of hate it because it's clearly just Light's voice with a modifier on it. Like, I get that it's a nitpick, but I just feel like the chief should be able to tell that that's clearly Light's voice masked behind a voice modifier. Likely the same voice modifier that he uses when acting as L.
This is L. This is Kira.
But anyway, the chief asks Kira to prove that he's the real thing, but Kira's like, dude, at this point, there's another notebook out there, so me predicting the deaths of criminals isn't really the flex that it used to be. But Kira comes up with another way to prove he is who he claims to be.
I've sent you something that will clearly prove to you that I am Kira. It's my own notebook.
Yeah, so the notebook that Light forfeited ownership of and gave back to Ryuk, well, he's having Ryuk give it to the task force, which is, yeah, kind of wild, because why would he do that? Well, let's see what he, or I guess what Misa, acting as him, has to say, because I guess that's probably worth pointing out too. Like, Light is with the rest of the task force as they listen into this conversation between Kira and the chief. But to be clear, this isn't Lelouch and Cullen type of situation where Light pre-recorded his side of the conversation. No, it's more like a voice cloning type of thing, because Misa is currently typing all of this out while on the phone with them.
Please stay calm and listen carefully.
But anyway, Kira goes on to tell them that his notebook is special and that it allows him to kill simply by knowing a person's face. He then goes on to say that he's already obtained information on most of the members of the Mafia, as well as where they're currently hiding out, and that he's already gone ahead and written their names in the notebook that he's giving to them, meaning that regardless of whether or not they want to, they won't be able to prevent them from dying. He then finishes it by telling them that everything will go down on November 10th at 11:59 p.m., and if they want to get that first notebook back, this will be their best chance to strike. And yeah. Now, we're obviously going to have a nice little discussion about all of this, but before we get into that, let's go ahead and jump back into how to use it. First up, if a person loses possession of a death note, they will not recognize the gods of death by sight or voice anymore. If, however, the owner lets someone else touch his death note, from that time on, that person will recognize the god of death. So this seems simple enough to me. It's basically saying that if person A has a death note and lets person B touch it, person B will still be able to see that Shinigami regardless of whether or not person A still has possession of the death note. So an in-universe example would be like what happened with Rim, Misa, and Higuchi. How Rim touched Misa with a scrap of the notebook, and Misa continued to be able to see Rim from that point on. So, yeah. Next up, in accordance with the above, the human who touched the death note and began to recognize the god of death's sight and voice will continue to recognize it until the human actually owns the death note and subsequently loses possession of it. So this one's pretty straightforward too, and using the example with Rim, Misa, and Higuchi, it's basically saying that Misa would still be able to see Rim even now if she was still alive, and the only way to stop seeing Rim would be to obtain Higuchi's notebook and then forfeit ownership of it. Or actually, that's not necessarily true, because if she forfeited ownership of her own notebook, meaning the one attached to Ryuk, she would also stop seeing Rim. But I guess maybe this isn't the best example since Rim is dead anyway, but you get the point I'm trying to make. Alright, so when we get back from the break, we see that the task force is discussing the phone call that they received from Kida and what their next steps ought to be.
If the Mafia members are going to die on the day Kida specified, it would be a chance to get the notebook back.
And yeah, he's right. I mean, it would make the most sense to go along with Kida's plan, especially given the fact that there really isn't any doubt in regard to whether or not this death note belongs to the actual Kida, seeing as the notebook came with its very own Shinigami.
But it's our best option.
Exactly.
And yeah, Ryuk is now able to be seen by everyone, which is kind of wild because while he's basically always been in the room with them, he's never been a part of the conversation. But that changes now. And while I like the idea of switching up this dynamic, I'd be lying if I said I won't miss what we had with Light and Ryuk's private conversations. Because, to be clear, that's over and done. Like, Light and Ryuk will never be able to have a private conversation again as a result of Light doing this. I mean, I guess they could if he killed everyone here, which, I mean, isn't completely outside the realm of possibility, but as for now, they're essentially strangers to each other. Also, I just kind of want to point out how risky this is from Light's perspective. Because, I mean, what if Ryuk fucks up here? Like, I would never be worried about Light messing up by acting too familiar with Ryuk, but Ryuk? I just feel like there's a much higher likelihood of him fucking around and accidentally saying something that could give the game away. And if he did, I mean, what then? It's not like Ryuk could do anything about it. I mean, even if he felt bad about messing up and getting Light caught, he couldn't kill the task force members because that would mean that he would die. And as much as he might like Light, he doesn't like him that much. So yeah, this has the potential to really go sideways with Ryuk just being in the room with them now. But anyway, in addition to being able to see Ryuk, the task force has also been made aware of what exactly makes this notebook special, as Ryuk has gone on to tell them about the Shinigami Eye deal. And the reason they're considering doing the deal is because despite Kida writing the names of the Mafia members in the notebook, there's no way of knowing if he got all of them written down. In fact, it's very likely that he didn't. For example, he definitely didn't write down Mello's name, so there could potentially be dozens of other Mafia members at the Hideout that Kida just doesn't have information on. Therefore, by having access to the Shinigami Eyes, they'll not only be able to confirm the deaths of the Mafia members written in the notebook, because, for the record, when a person dies, their lifespan actually disappears. But yeah, in addition to that, they'll also be able to theoretically kill whoever else is at the Hideout by simply writing down their names, as opposed to getting into a prolonged shootout, which really wouldn't be great for them, given the fact that they're rolling up to this place with only 5 guys. Though, when it comes to that second reason, well, we'll get to it in a minute. Now, with them having decided to have someone take the deal, it's just a matter of deciding who that person will be. And, I mean, if the title of this episode wasn't enough to give it away, I'll go ahead and let him say it.
I will make the deal for the eyes.
And yeah, I mean, this makes total sense from our perspective. It honestly shouldn't be anyone but him because realistically, he's the one that got them into this situation. It was his decision to give up the notebook that got them here. But even going deeper than that, old boy's in a dark place right now. Hell, at one point he even says,
I've even thought of killing myself.
Which is wild to hear, but at the same time, it's not really that much of a surprise. Hell, it's not even the first time it's been insinuated that he'd be open to the idea of suicide, with Ryuzaki saying as much back in episode 16 when it was looking like Light might actually be Kira.
I believe you'd kill your son and then yourself.
Which was then followed by him acting out that exact scenario later in that episode to a very convincing degree. So yeah, if he was willing to kill himself in that situation, then I could 100% believe he'd be willing to do it now, seeing as, like I said earlier, he's essentially served to help create another Kira. Now, something I did want to point out real quick is the fact that Matsuda says this after the chief volunteers for tribute.
No way, Chief. Let me be the one to do it.
And I feel like that makes a lot of sense coming from someone like Matsuda. I feel like even now he still suffers from a bit of an inferiority complex, thinking of himself as not contributing at the same level as his peers. And not only that, but he fucking loves the chief. Like, I don't know what Matsuda's home life is like, but I'm imagining this dude grew up without a father figure in his life, given the way he seems to be willing to do just about anything for the chief. To be honest, dude's a better son than his actual son. But anyway, the chief goes on to say,
I'll use the notebook to kill any criminals who try to stop us. And then, after 13 days, I'll die as well.
And okay, there's a lot to be discussed here. And the first is the fact that now he's just willing to use the Death Note. Hell, they're all just kind of fine with using the Death Note now. And my question is, where the fuck was this energy back when Ryuzaki wanted to use it? Like, it wouldn't have made a difference in regard to saving his life. Hell, in fact, y'all would have just probably died with him. But still, to go from not wanting to use the Death Note at all to all of y'all being fine with it is, I don't know, man. That shit just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Y'all were basically vilifying Ryuzaki for that shit at the time. But now it's just fine. Okay. Anyway, secondly, and really more importantly, the 13-day rule is bullshit. I mean, we already know that, but I feel the need to reiterate it because that means that if the chief does end up using the notebook, then after 13 days, Light's gonna have no choice but to write down his father's name. And this ain't a Sayu situation. Quite the opposite, actually. In that situation, killing Sayu would have only served to put the spotlight back on him. However, in this situation, not killing his dad would be the thing that would put the spotlight back on him again. And arguably in a much worse way. Because as it stands, the 13-day rule is the only thing that's serving to clear him and Misa as suspects. Without it, there's really no reason to believe that they weren't Kira and the second Kira all those years ago. And if they were possibly Kira back then, I mean, who's to say that they aren't still Kira, you know? So if the chief uses the notebook, then he's gotta die. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That man gotta go. So with that in mind, well, let's just hope that it doesn't come to that. But anyway, from there, we transition to November 10th, just a few minutes before midnight, and
I'm ready.
Sure thing, boss.
And there's just something that's off about this. Like, it just makes me feel weird seeing him with such a demonic appearance. Because we know that he's not about this kind of life. Like, this shit is evil, and he's just not that guy. But nevertheless, this is where we are. And to be clear, from here on out, shit gets real hectic real fast. Because as the clock strikes midnight, or 11:59 p.m., we hear this. So yeah, with this, it's confirmed that these guys are dead, which means it's time for the task force to make their move. Also, RIP to my man Rod. That man was a fucking trip, and I definitely enjoyed him while he was here. But anyway, with their first reason for using the Shinigami eyes showcased already, I want to take a second to discuss their second reason for making the deal, and for bringing the notebook into the building. The whole thing about potentially making things easier by writing criminals' names down instead of getting wrapped up in a firefight. Well, realistically, how does that make any fucking sense? Like, hey guys, I don't know if y'all realize this or not, but writing a name down takes significantly longer than pulling the trigger on your gun. Like, it's actually so silly to have sent them in there with the notebook like that. What y'all should have done is put cameras on your gear so that he could stay outside and just keep writing the names of whoever popped up on your feed. Like, there is no reason that this geriatric man should be in this fucking firefight trying to see through all the smoke and gunfire so that he could write down some fucking names. Like, this is stupid. And honestly, the more I think about it, the dumber it gets. Because y'all just brought another death note into a situation where you don't even know how many enemies are present. Like, there could be 100 Mafia members in here, armed and just ready to light y'all up. And then what? Y'all just die and leave them with double the amount of death notes? Like, what the fuck is going on? But whatever. As I said, they bust in here and all hell breaks loose. Meanwhile, Mello's just frustrated by how things are playing out, especially considering the fact that he can see Sidoh just sitting there not doing anything. But in reality, unbeknownst to him, Sidoh's actually being held up himself by our boy Ryuk.
Just shut up and watch, all right? If you can do that, you'll get your notebook back.
Meanwhile, back inside, we see Mello and the remaining members of the Mafia making a break for it with the notebook. And I just have to point out the fact that my boy Matsuda has ridiculous accuracy with a gun. Like, I've joked about it before, especially in relation to, later in the series, but I was kind of under the impression that that was like a one-off thing. But no, it's slowly being established that he's actually a hell of a marksman. Like, look at this. He aimed his gun, fired 3 times, and managed to hit the exact target each time, with the first bullet disarming the guy on the right, the second bullet disarming the dude on the left, and the final bullet knocking the death note out of the first guy's hand. Like, damn, bro, you out here acting like the new outta. And yeah, with that, they've gotten the original death note back. So now that they've gotten what they came for, they should definitely take the 2 notebooks and get the hell out of it.
Not yet. Keep going.
Bro, what? Why?
We still haven't found anyone who resembles our picture of Mello.
And, dude, we're walking around here with 2 notebooks right now. Coming in here with 1 was bad enough, in my opinion, especially since we didn't even use the damn thing. But going deeper into this place, when we have no idea what else could be waiting for us in here. Like, we are quite literally in the belly of the beast. And now that we have the notebook and have a better overall understanding of Mello's tactics, we can prevent anything like what happened to Sayu and Director Takemura from happening again. So continuing right now it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does for Light. Sure, he wants Mello dead because he's a threat to him as Kira, but still, I would argue that walking around this place with 2 notebooks just seems super risky. But whatever. At the end of the day, what Light says goes, and so the task force makes their way deeper into the hideout. I just really hope that nothing goes wrong. Wonderful.
Don't move! I've already blown up the 2 entrances to this place. The next explosion will take out the entire building, as well as all your men inside.
So now, face to face with the chief, Mello makes it clear that he's not messing around. But then, that being said, neither is the chief.
Your real name, it's Mihael Keehl.
What the hell?
And I love the genuine shock here, because that's gotta be baffling. Like, the fuck you say, old man? Like, fucking Batman.
Why did you say that name?
But yeah, after the chief says Mello's real name over the radio, Light gets excited because, once again, everything has gone according to Keikaku. Except, actually,
it's time to turn yourself in. If you give up, I won't kill you.
And this sets Light off.
What are you doing? Don't be stupid. Write his name down and kill him now!
And honestly, I get where he's coming from. I mean, Light's a very vengeful person, so the fact that Mello has dared to oppose him, and honestly, the fact that he put his family through so much shit, I mean, it makes sense that he'd just want him dead. But the chief just isn't that kind of person. Like I've said time and time again, he's a good man. And the right thing to do in this situation is to bring Mello in, not kill him, even if he does end up threatening to do just that.
Don't move! I've written your first name, and it will only take me a second to write your surname.
But the thing is, Mello is very intuitive, as are pretty much all of the major detectives in this show. And I mean, one of the hallmarks of a good detective is their ability to read people, like the way Light did with Naomi and the way Ryuzaki did with Light. And the reason I'm bringing these examples up is because in this scene, we essentially see that Mello has done the same thing with the chief, as he correctly assumes that the chief isn't actually going to write his name down.
You've never killed someone before, have you?
And I feel like this was worth taking note of because Mello doesn't really know the chief, and yet in this quick interaction, he was able to correctly deduce that the chief really has no intention of killing him. And the reason I find that so impressive is because, at face value, I would argue that the chief would have every reason to want to kill Mello. I mean, this guy kidnapped and claimed to have murdered the chief's old boss. He kidnapped and traumatized his daughter, and he's currently threatening to blow up the chief and all of his men right now. Like, the chief should be more than willing to kill Mello, and yet Mello seems confident that he won't do it. Maybe it was because he could see that the chief was visibly sweating as he spoke to him. Maybe it was the fact that the chief kept warning Mello as opposed to just writing down his name. I can't say. But regardless, I think it speaks to Mello's skills as a detective to be able to accurately determine that in this moment, the chief is really just all talk. And unfortunately for the chief, his unwillingness to follow through with writing down Mello's name comes at a cost. A grave one. So among the bodies on the floor, of whom the chief assumed all were dead, one of them was not. And using the fact that the chief was focused on Mello to his advantage, the guy on the floor, a dude named Jose, grabbed a nearby gun and just lit the chief up. Damn, my boy got served the Marion special with that one. Now, I will say that from the sound of the audio, it does sound like the vest took the brunt of the shots, but judging from the blood on the side of his neck, it's clear that it didn't take all of them. But anyway, the sound of gunfire draws the attention of the other members of the task force, who I guess are just in the building searching for the chief and or Mello. And while they make their way back to him, we see Jose trying to wrestle the notebook from the chief, but our boy ain't letting it go. My man's holding onto that thing for dear life, and I gotta respect the strength it must take to hold off this big-ass dude. Also, I want to take note of the fact that Mello takes it upon himself to grab a gas mask that's lying on the floor. And at first, I was wondering why he'd just randomly go get a gas mask, but I realized that he probably picked it up to cover his face, because the chief did call this man by his government name over the mic. So now the only thing keeping him safe is the fact that no one other than the chief knows what he looks like. So if that is the reason that he did that, then that's pretty fast thinking on his part. Anyway, as Jose gets fed up with trying to get the notebook away from the chief, he decides to go get his gun and just end things once and for all. But before he gets the chance to pull the trigger, Aizawa rolls up and just shoots this man on sight. And yeah, with Jose dead and Mello surrounded by the members of the task force, he decides he really doesn't have any other option aside from blowing this place up. And while you would think that such a massive explosion would definitely kill everyone inside, you would be wrong.
Matsuda, are you alright? No, I don't think so. I'm sure you'll live.
So not only are they alive, but they're also just kind of talking shit. Okay, cool. Also, bro, why did you even ask? This man was literally in a building that just blew up and you're still dismissing him. My man could have been hit with shrapnel or something. He could be actively bleeding out and you're just like, walk it off. Fucking hell. But yeah, they all make it out of that alive. I guess that body armor doubles as plot armor too. However, that being said, despite them all surviving the explosion, well, not all of them are going to survive the night. Because while the chief did make it out of that explosion alive, while actually still holding on to the notebook, he's not doing too great.
Please, Dad, you can't die on me like this!
So from here, we enter one of the final scenes of this episode, and it starts with the chief in a hospital bed, with Light sitting by his bedside and the members of the task force all huddled around them. And if you're wondering why Sayu and Sachiko aren't there, well, it's because they're still in Japan. And, I mean, to be completely transparent, he's not going to make it long enough for them to see him before he goes. But hey, he does have his son, and he also still has the Shinigami eyes. And the reason I'm bringing those up is because, apparently, Light had Ryuk inform the task force that the chief would be unable to see the lifespan of another Death Note owner. And since Light made a point to give up ownership right before all of this went down, it means that the chief can see his lifespan. And because of that, he can confidently say,
Light, you really aren't Kira. I'm so glad. My son.
And I'm not even gonna lie, this shit had my eyes watering up because it's so heartbreaking. Because what this means is that despite appearing confident in the fact that he knew that his son wasn't Kira, deep down, he must have always had just a flicker of doubt. Deep down, he must have still always wondered if maybe his son was actually Kira. And that makes sense. Because while others, like Matsuda, didn't give it a second thought after he had been cleared.
Don't tell me you're still worried about that, Chief. Of course he's not Kira.
The same can't be said for the chief, because he apparently still had his doubts, and I could understand why. I mean, think about it. The world's greatest detective spent the better part of a year honing in on Light as the main suspect in this investigation. Like, Ryuzaki died while still believing that fact. And to kind of take it further, I want to go back to episode 2 and have y'all listen to the way in which the chief describes L.
He's managed to solve every case he's ever taken on, and he's tackled some of the greatest mysteries this world has ever known. He's the best of the best.
And the reason I want to bring attention to it is because while this does serve as our introduction to L, it also serves as our introduction to the chief, too. Like, this is the very first scene with him in it, and it's used to show us how highly the chief thinks of L. Hell, keeping with the Batman motif, the chief is essentially Commissioner Gordon in this situation. And I'm actually surprised that I'd never made that connection before. But yeah, my point is, it's difficult to reconcile with the idea that this person who's just never been wrong before could suddenly get it completely wrong by choosing Light as his main suspect. It just doesn't make sense unless maybe Ryuzaki wasn't actually wrong. But then that's not something that the chief was open to hearing because, I mean, Light's his kid. And because he's his kid, we saw time and time again just how desperate he was to get him cleared. How he'd tell himself and anyone who would listen that it was impossible for him to be Kira. And it eventually got to the point where he'd have taken any morsel of doubt that the case threw at him. Anything to justify his belief, or rather, his hope that his son wasn't Kira. And fortunately for him, that came in the form of an oddly specific 13-day rule in a magical notebook that belonged to a Shinigami. But even with that clearing Light, that flicker of doubt still remained. It was small, sure, nothing that wouldn't stop him from loving his child and supporting him in his future endeavors, but still, it remained. Something he just couldn't shake no matter how hard he might have wanted to. But now, in his final moments, with the powers of a Shinigami actively showing him undeniable proof in the form of a lifespan hovering over his son's head, he can finally extinguish that tiny flicker of doubt that existed within him. He can finally say with absolute certainty that his son isn't Kira. And that revelation, that final piece of concrete evidence, was enough to literally make him shed tears of joy as he lay in this hospital bed moments away from his own death. And this whole beautiful moment is undeservedly undercut by the fact that it's all just a fucking ruse. That this revelation, this moment wherein the Chief's fears are finally and unequivocally put to rest, is just another fucking trick. That as we see the Chief shed tears for the very first time, his son is sitting opposite of him thinking,
I've got bigger things to deal with right now. I've got to get him to write Mello's name in the notebook.
And it just... it breaks my heart, man. Like, it just sucks. Just as the Chief finally comes to terms with the fact that his son definitely isn't Kira, Light becomes more desperate than ever to get his father involved with his activities as Kira by trying to coerce him into writing a name down in the death note. It's fuck me, man. Damn. And don't get me wrong, I get that there's a certain level of mercy about it all, with it probably being better that he's allowed to die while thinking that his son wasn't Kira. But there's just something that's just so... maybe not infuriating, but just sad about it all. But anyway, from there the Chief goes on to actually apologize for not following through with writing Mello's name down, saying,
I'm so sorry, but I couldn't bring myself to kill him.
And I will say that this is interesting because it kind of coincides with what he said the last time we saw him in a hospital bed.
Listen to me. Kira is pure evil. But recently I've started thinking of this whole situation in a different way. What is truly evil is the power to kill people.
And that's it. That's why he wouldn't, or hell, couldn't do it. He sees the act of killing as something that's truly evil. And because of that, he couldn't allow himself to use the notebook on Mello. But anyway, in regard to Light, as I said before, he's still trying to figure out a way to get the Chief to write down Mello's real name, and he's decided to get creative with his approach.
Dad, you can't let him beat you like this! Write his name down! With your last bit of strength, do you want to die in vain?
And I mean, it's a solid approach. He actually said it himself that people wouldn't really question it if he approached it the right way, and this was definitely a good way to go about it. Like, if I was in that room, I would 100% believe his performance here. And hell, I'd argue that it's really only half a performance, because as the scene continues and we see the Chief finally slip away with his eyes slowly closing, his pupils transitioning from red to white, and a final whisper of his son's name escaping his lips before the EKG informs the room of what they already know, we see Light just fall apart.
Dad, wake up! Come on, damn it! Don't you die on me, you idiot! Dad!
And I would argue that this, at least this part, is real. I mean, he's actually crying, which, just like with the Chief, we've never seen him do before. So I don't know, I just can't help but feel like this is real. I mean, maybe part of it's for the task force, the way he did for Ryuzaki, but nah, man, that's his dad. Light's a piece of shit. I feel like even the last few minutes have proved that much, but that's his dad, man. Like, I guess I just have to believe it's real, even if it is an act. So, yeah. I guess I should also point out that Light isn't the only one that's crying right now, because the rest of the task force is also shedding tears. Well, almost everyone. Not Mogi. Mogi's always just the outlier, man. Doesn't speak, doesn't cry, doesn't get injured? What the fuck? He's the only one that didn't get injured in that explosion? Where the fuck were you at, Mogi? But anyway, I guess the last thing I'll say about this scene is in regard to the theme that's being played in the background, because it's actually the same theme that we heard at the beginning of this episode. And the reason I'm bringing it up now as opposed to at the beginning when it was originally played is because of the title of this theme, of which there are actually two. Now, one of them is Death Image, but the other one is Chichi no Shi. And when I went ahead and translated that, it translated to Father's Name. But that's actually not correct. Because when I sent this script over to Mar, my editor, she actually informed me that the true translation of Chichi no Shi is the death of the father, which is part of the reason I waited until now to really bring it up. But yeah, even at the beginning of this episode, they were subtly making it clear that this was the end for the chief. So yeah. With all of that being said, this is where we say goodbye to Sorichiro Yagami, the chief. You will be missed. And yeah, from there we head to the final scene of this episode, which starts with Light letting the other members of the task force touch the notebook, thus letting them see Sidoh. Cause yeah, old Bird Boy is still here and he's itching to get his notebook back. And they do end up giving it back to him. It's a really quick sequence with Light basically saying that they don't need an extra notebook, which makes sense. Also, in reality, Sidoh's a fucking liability. Because if you remember, he's already told Mello that the rules in the back of the notebook are fake. And Light cannot afford to have this guy running his beak to the task force like that. So yeah, as Sidoh flies off, we get insight into Ryuk's thoughts as he stares at the task force, but really, specifically, Light.
Humans who use the notebook are cursed with fear, pain, and misery.
Which is actually damn near verbatim to something he said back in episode 1.
You will feel the fear and pain known only to humans who've used the notebook.
And I really like the consistency in regard to that. I also like how it kind of turns out to be true, seeing as Light is definitely experiencing all three of those emotions to some extent right now. But from there, he goes on to explain that technically the chief never actually used the notebook, and because of that,
he got to die believing that his son wasn't Kira. I guess that means he was happy.
And yeah, with all of that being said, roll credits. Anyway, that's the end of this video, but as always, before we wrap this one up, I want to take a second to thank all the folks over on our Patreon who help make these videos possible. Starting things off, I want to say thank you to our 31 admirable assessors and our 123 invaluable investigators. In addition to them, I want to shout out our 10 remarkable researchers: Arrow Falcon Green, Game and Alchemist, Legend Dragon, Pellets, Staff of the Crystal Serpent, The Best, Trinity Schiffer, Tyrant Link, Vanellian, and Yggdrasil. And lastly, praise be to our 9 official overanalyzers: Asia, Cavarax XE, Chicken Wugget, C-Mart, Cody for Now, Croy Raiden, Amelia, I Am the Blonde Asshole, and Joey Helbig. I just want to say thanks again to all of y'all for helping make these videos possible. I really appreciate all the love and support. And yeah, if you liked this video, then consider dropping a like. If you really liked it, then consider subscribing. And if you just loved it and want to see more sooner, then consider joining the Patreon. Anyway, that's it for this time. Until next time, friends, peace.